As the currency remains weak and fundamentals continue to display strength and solidity, investors will reappraise their stance towards the currency.
The rupee opened at 91.9125 against the US dollar, almost unchanged from its previous close of 91.9550, after touching an all-time low of 91.9850 in the last session. The currency is down about 2.3% so far this month and is on course for its worst monthly performance since September 2022. Since Donald Trump assumed office for his second U.S. presidential term, the Indian rupee has fallen about 6% against the USD.
So there are a few reasons as to why the rupee is depreciating. One is obviously geopolitics with what's happening in Iran as well as in Greenland, and India going into a long weekend. Anyway, we have been seeing foreign portfolio investors having some pressure in the markets and FII selling. So going into a long weekend, that would be putting added pressure. The other is we've had slightly a mixed result season, and the OMO operations from the RBI have not been that strong just yet. I think the RBI will probably have to step in a very material way. But I think if you look at the US T-bills today at about 4.5% and the Japanese bond market also looking lucrative, I think monies are going out of the Indian bond and the equity markets. Hopefully, if the union budget is a good budget in a week or so from now, things could potentially stabilize. But we don't think that the rupee will appreciate substantially from here. Even if there is an appreciation, it will probably be close to about 89, 90 levels, not much. But we think that the rupee still does have a downward bias. And if you look at the next 2 to 3 years, we think that the annual rate of depreciation could be about 2.5–3% per year.
Value decline more. Would that be helpful to IMF?
No, I'd want it to be just seek its own level, which is the fair thing to do. You could have it. I could have it go up or go down like a yo-yo.
Trump's recent threats to bomb and attack Iran or to annex Greenland have shaken up the markets.
President Trump said, we're not getting a nuclear Iran, you won't have a nuclear bomb. He meant it. And we sent those B-2s halfway around the world, and they never noticed. When he said, we're not going to tolerate trafficking drugs anymore in our hemisphere, we treat them like the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere, he meant it, and we're executing that.
Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America.
Undervalued rupee would not hurt at this point.
Would not what?
So would not hurt at this point. Should that be read as a degree of policy comfort with a weaker currency? And do you have a specific level or a period of undervaluation of rupee beyond which probably the phenomenon would bring discomfort?
There is a law of diminishing marginal utility to any public commentary on the rupee beyond a point. And I think we have reached that point.
So I think the answer to the rupee valuation is exactly what we discussed. So the long-term answer is manufacturing competitiveness, exports. And in the short run, some developments may not be in our control. But more importantly, the fact that the rupee is not reflecting the macro fundamentals and the sustained growth rate will definitely catch the attention of some investors, and that is when the tide will turn. And if you look at the rupee's performance, as I showed you, it isn't out of line with all other emerging market currencies have gone through and are It is a geopolitical risk. I mean, and that is what is reflected not just in the Indian rupee but elsewhere. That's why I wanted to put the Indian rupee's performance in the context of what's happening elsewhere. So the answer to your question lies in the fact that as the currency remains weak and fundamentals continue to display strength and solidity, investors will reappraise their stance towards the currency. And if we continue on the path of structural reforms, as we have been doing in the last 12 to 18 months, both in the union and state governments, then as Indian exports show resilience and even growth, that will also further consolidate the revised perceptions on the Indian rupee going forward.
However, despite the depreciating rupee, the Indian government continues to highlight strong economic indicators.
The Indian economy continues to power on. Growth, we have just seen, is at 8.2% even in the second quarter, beating all estimates. We have seen the lowest ever inflation in the last few months. Foreign exchange reserves continue to be strong. Capital inflows and investments in infrastructure, consumer spending, all the levers of the economy have demonstrated a great deal of positivity. Merchandise exports are also on a strong wicket. If I remember correctly, some of you had reported about the October merchandise exports having gone down. Incidentally, November has gone up by a greater amount than what had gone down in October. So if I aggregate October and November, both months, there is a growth in merchandise exports, despite all the global turmoil. This only goes to show that the economy is on a strong footing. We are working towards deeper integration with the global trading partners, and in the months and days to come, you will hear a lot more about our own successful engagements with many of our trading countries.